Support for this podcast comes from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative, connecting communities with the resources, infrastructure, and networks to ensure a vibrant local free press.
From KVPR in Fresno, this is Central Valley Daily. Happy Friday, it's January 23rd. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. A new documentary film examines the significant number of people across the country who've had their tribal membership revoked. The practice is known as disenrollment.
So the people that are disenrolled are now being ousted from communities that they grew up with.
The film shares the stories of disenrolled tribal members, including some here in the San Joaquin Valley. We'll learn more about the film in just a few minutes, but first, these headlines. State Assemblymember Jasmeet Bains is continuing to push for a federal review of charges against former Kern County Supervisor Zack Scrivner. The Assemblymember from Delano said she was encouraged by a visit by U.S. Attorney Eric Grant to Kern County this week, though it's unclear if Grant's visit was related to the charges against Scrivner. Scrivner is undergoing a mental health diversion after he was accused of sexually abusing one of his children. The diversion allows him to avoid a legal trial. The case has garnered heavy criticism from both Democrats and Republicans and has shaken up political circles in Kern County. California counties are starting their annual homeless point-in-time counts. This is the annual census where volunteers fan out statewide to try to answer the question, is California's homelessness crisis improving or getting worse? The count comes at a time when Governor Gavin Newsom has touted a 9% drop in California's unsheltered homeless population in 2025. But that drop doesn't paint a full picture. Marisa Kendall, with our partner Cal Matters, says that the federal government only requires counties to do a count every other year, though she says some counties like LA do choose to do it annually.
But other counties that do have historically large homeless populations, like San Francisco and Alameda County, only count in even-numbered years. So that means they didn't count last year. So when they count this year, we'll see a kind of a fuller picture of their numbers.
San Francisco and Alameda counties launched their point-in-time counts this week. So did Los Angeles and San Bernardino. Fresno County plans to start its count next week. A federal judge this week refused to block a new Department of Homeland Security policy. It requires members of Congress to give a week's notice before visiting immigration detention facilities. Rhonda Rios-Kravitz with the Sacramento Immigration Coalition says unannounced oversight is critical.
At a time when Congress is debating the biggest historical increase in funding, we think it's imperative that our Congress individuals are able to see firsthand what's happening inside these facilities so that they can prevent any more funding for ICE detention and its illegal operations.
The judge says the plaintiff's attorneys used the wrong method to challenge the policy. The decision was not a ruling on whether the policy itself is legal. Democratic State Senator Melissa Hurtado will soon have a challenger, and he's already being endorsed by the local GOP. Guillermo Gonzalez will officially launch his campaign today at an event in McFarland. He's a small business owner and community advocate. A campaign message highlights that Gonzalez was born in Bakersfield but raised in Mexico. He'll be joined by other Republican leaders, including State Senator Shannon Grove and the chairs of the Kern and Kings County Republican parties. California water regulators have released official guidelines to help groundwater managers fight subsidence. The Department of Water Resources released its best practices document this week. Subsidence is that phenomenon where land sinks when too much groundwater is extracted. The guidelines help the managers learn about available assistance and how to limit subsidence. Research shows the San Joaquin Valley has been sinking an average of an inch per year for decades, and some places much more than that.
If you start your day with Central Valley Daily and are looking for a companion program in the afternoon, there's All Things Considered. Hi, I'm Sarith Hawk. Each weekday afternoon, I'm on KVPR's broadcast bringing you the day's local and national news. Join me for All Things Considered, weekdays from 3:30 to 6 on KVPR. You can also stream us online at kvpr.org, through your smart speaker, and on the KVPR app.
And now to our main story. Within Native American communities right now, there's a conflict so tense that some say it amounts to a civil war, one that has been largely hidden from people outside of tribal communities. The fight is over who qualifies as an official tribal member, and this matters because members receive benefits, including housing, healthcare, and casino profits. And if you're disenrolled, you lose all of that, and your community. It's make or break for many people. And those people's stories, including many of the Picayune Rancheria of the Chukchansi Indians in Coarse Gold, are being told in a new documentary. It's called You're No Indian. The documentary explores why tribes would want to disenroll people and how it's often to the benefit of the remaining members. We caught up with director Ryan Flynn before the film's screening in Fresno this weekend to talk more about this reckoning. Ryan starts off our conversation by explaining exactly what disenrollment is.
Well, disenrollment is what it sounds like. It's being disenrolled from membership in a tribe. And this strips you of, whatever benefits you may get from your tribe. But in addition, it also severs the connection that you have with that community. You're no longer a member. So the people that are disenrolled are now being ousted from communities that they grew up with, and then along with that comes questions of identity, and a loss of knowing who you are and where you come from, and so with this comes mental disorders. We've documented, suicidal ideation from these things and other trauma, but effectively disenrollment is the elimination of a person's tribal membership from their tribe. And it's reported to us that a lot of the times this is coming from casino profit motivations. The fewer members there are in a tribe, the larger piece of the casino profits those that remain get. So if you have 1,000 people getting $500 a month, cut that in half, you have 500 people getting $1,000 a month.
Yeah, we'll dive into some of those politics in a minute, but I'm wondering if you could first illustrate just the scale of disenrollment in this country. Do we have an estimate of how many people have been disenrolled from their tribe across the U.S.?
It's really hard to nail down. The number that was reported to us was 11,000, and that checks out, and that's people who have been disenrolled. But what that number doesn't count is their children and their grandchildren, and everybody that comes after them. In addition, there are examples of people that would be rightful members not being enrolled, not being able to enroll because they missed the deadline. And there were other examples. So, low estimates for us are in the seven figures for the actual impact of this.
Wow. Well, we're talking today because your documentary film, You're No Indian, will be having multiple screenings this weekend in Fresno. You're the director of the film. I'm curious about what made you want to do this project and document these stories.
Yeah, I was curious, how much does an indigenous person get from their casino? And I Googled it one evening and found out that number changes tribe to tribe. In fact, every tribe is very different, not just monetarily, culturally, language, spiritually. And I came across this story of disenrollment where people were saying they were rightful members removed from their tribe, but they had DNA evidence. And, well, how did you get that DNA evidence? They were forced to exhume bodies, digging up ancestors, taking DNA tests, passing those DNA tests, and still getting kicked out.
I was shocked by that story, yeah.
Yeah, it's wild, and I looked into it further. Wow, it's true. And I saw so many different stories that were like this, of people that had empirical evidence saying that they belonged and being removed. And it was reported that It's because the fewer members that are left in the tribe, the larger piece of the pie they get from different casino revenue monies and other monies. So where's the film? Why hasn't there been a film? And so I was a producer, and it felt like a responsibility. That we needed to make this and bring this to light.
Yeah, folks in the documentary even said this is a problem, a racial problem, really, within Native American communities that is not getting the attention that other racial issues in this country are getting. A portion of your documentary focuses on the Chukchansi tribe, which is in Madera County, near us here. The history of their disenrollment could be a whole conversation on its own, but could you give an overview of what that tribe has dealt with when it comes to disenrollment?
Yeah, Chukchansi is close to our hearts. We spent at least 2 years living in Fresno, up in Coarse Gold, in Indian Lakes, and we documented the stories of people that are for disenrollment and people that are against disenrollment. We followed the path of somebody who brought people back into the tribe, but then she later lost power and has since been disenrolled. And there's been this, as we've seen, people will be brought in and then they get kicked back out, and then brought in and kicked back out. It just doesn't seem to stop, and it's a really hard thing to watch as an outsider.
To play devil's advocate, idiomatic expression in English, but to play devil's advocate, because you spoke with people who are for and against disenrollment, I want to look at the other side for a second, because obviously these tribes want to preserve their heritage, and there's certainly an incentive to be a tribe member, even if your connection is sparse. Are there people stretching their story to become members, or did you encounter any reasonable examples of people being disenrolled for a good reason throughout your filming process? Or was the narrative largely that this was being exploited?
In this film, we were looking for that example of, somebody that was wrongfully or rightfully disenrolled, and we haven't found it yet. And I spoke with Gabe Galanda, who's an Indigenous rights attorney. I asked him the same question, and he said, 20 years. I still haven't found one. But to address the question, people refer to it as pretendianism, where somebody, takes on an indigenous identity for financial gain or political gain or success in, let's say, the film industry. Indigenous identity fraud is fraud, but that's not what we're here to talk about. We're talking about rightful members being wrongfully removed from their tribes for either political or financial gain. And it's happening all over the country, and it's growing.
Ryan Flynn, director of the documentary You're No Indian, screening this weekend in Fresno. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
The Saturday screening is sold out, but tickets are still available for Sunday afternoon. You can find more information and get tickets at yournoindian.com. And lastly, if you'd like to hear more about disenrollment, you can go into the Central Valley Daily Archives. Listen to our November 8th, 2024 episode. We spoke with Claudia Gonzalez. She had been the chairwoman of the Picayune Rancheria of Chukchansi Indians, and she was eventually disenrolled from the tribe. Claudia is featured in the documentary as well. And that is today's show. Today's episode was produced by Jonathan Linden and KVPR with support from the Central Valley Journalism Collaborative. I'm Elizabeth Arkalian. Find the latest local news anytime at kvpr.org.
How does AI even work? Where does creativity come from? What's the secret to living longer? TED Radio Hour explores the biggest questions with some of the world's greatest thinkers. They will surprise, challenge, and even change you. Listen to NPR's TED Radio Hour wherever you get your podcasts.